Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode with me, Carlos Kidman. Today in this episode, we're going to be talking about the page object model with Pylenium, which is a web automation tool that's wrapped around Selenium. We're just going to build on top of our example that we used in the previous video, so that way things have a little bit of continuity, if you will. So with that, let's switch back over to the right scene here. And we're back to copart.com, which we were using in the previous episode. This should be familiar now with test challenge 1, 2, and 3. This was for the certification from STG. What we're going to do here is we're going to use some page objects instead to achieve some of these things that, even though Pylenium made really, really easy, we can still put them into page objects. So let me close all of these, and the first thing I'm going to want to do is inside of our pip file here, if you're using pipenv, I just want to make sure that we update Pylenium to use the latest and greatest. So let's go in here, and I'm going to say pipenv, and I'm going to do Pylenium IO, and as of this recording, the latest one is 1.3.1. But we'll do this just to make sure that we're all on the same page with the correct version of Pylenium. With that complete, we'll click back into this file, and then we'll see that it gets updated to make sure we're using this hard-coded 1.3.1 instead of just the wildcard. So that's all I'll need here. I'll minimize this. We can close this pip file as well. And then let's update our challenges real quick. So test challenge 1, we're going to use the latest and greatest here. So we're going to say assert py.should have the title of puppies, or actually in this case it's contains, because we're saying puppies in the title. So this would be contain the title puppies, and we can get rid of this line here. So you'll see that in the latest and greatest of Pylenium, we actually have the should for elements and just the driver itself. So py.should, we could also do it against the elements. So if we said py.get whatever, you could should on this as well, and any one of these expectations or conditions, you can use any of those as well right out of the box. So good stuff there. All right, so in challenge 3, we did printing the cars out. In challenge 2, we did this search here for exotics. So I would imagine that we'd want to be searching a lot of things inside of this search box, right? And let's search for exotics again. So exotics, we'll hit enter. It'll take us here, but notice how everything in the top stays the exact same, right? This header navigation does not change at all, regardless of the page we go to. Click on home, it gets us back to home. Everything underneath it changes, but the header itself does not. So we're going to want to represent this header navigation as a quote unquote page object, right? Really just an object. So let's do that inside of code. Going to minimize this here. Let's make a new directory. So we'll say new Python package, and we're going to call this one just copart. And we'll call this one copart.com, just so then it's very explicit. This is copart.com. Inside of here, we're going to make a new directory, and we're just going to call this one pages. So all of our pages are going to exist inside of this. Let's make a new file, and we'll call this one the header nav.py. Close this challenge. I don't want to close it quite yet. I really want to copy this though, this line, because that's essentially what I want to do a search. So let's say class header nav. Notice how the class is all capitalized and it's not snake case. So we'll say header nav. And then in here, this is just object-oriented programming at this point. Really all we need is py to get started. So we'll say self.py is equal to py. Now, what is py? In the last episode, we know that when we're talking about py, we're talking about Pylenium. So we could explicitly say this by saying py is of type Pylenium. And if we bring this in, import Pylenium, now it knows that py has to be of type Pylenium. Okay, with that, we want to have a search now, a search. We're going to make a search, and here let's just, we'll have it say query, right? And this is a string. And I'll paste what I had before. So what we had here, let me close this. What we had here was we needed pi to get this input search and then type something in and click enter, right? So let me start pulling these in. So there's our import keys at the top. This is now self.py on line 7, so self.py. And then instead of always searching for exotics, we just want to replace this with whatever string we pass in as our query. And there we go, the header nav is ready to search things. And just so we have one more thing in there, so it's not just search by itself, let's also include this home link here. So we'll inspect it here on the left-hand side. Let me clean that up. There we go. So this has the href of this, or the data uname of homepage home tab. So let's give that a try here. We're going to say, let's try to find the A element that has the data uname that equals, and this was the, I'll just click it, no need to type it out when it's right there. Double click, copy that, paste it in here, and oh, they don't have a jQuery, so we'll use document.query selector just so it's much cleaner. There it is. So we found it. So let me copy this. Copy, switch back over. And let's just call this like go to home. And all we're going to do here is self.py.get. And we already had it in here. And we're just going to click on this. And that'll take us home. Grab this here and let's make sure we save that because it's not a typo. It's what we expected for sure. So that'll take us home. So there we go. That's nice. But remember, this object, the header navigation, is on every single page. So if you think about it, it's almost as if it's shared between all the pages, right? And whenever we need to share something like that, it's always a good idea to make something like a base class, right? Or like a base page, if you will, that every page is going to be inheriting from or going to be using. So inside of here, we're going to make a new file. We'll call this one pagebase.py. Perfect. And now class page base. Let's do our def init, and I think I may have gone too close. Pi, let me zoom back out a bit. There we go, and let me minimize this a bit. There we go. So pi, and let's say that, do we need pi? Yes, we're gonna say self.py is equal to pi. And let's do our little trick that we had before, right? So we're gonna say this is Pylenium. Everybody knows that it's Pylenium that we're referencing. And then we're going to say self.header. Yeah, we'll just call it header. So self.header is equal to a header nav. That also requires Pylenium. We'll bring this in. All right, so now we have this page base that's holding the instance of Pylenium to be shared across all pages, and then also the header nav that to also be shared across all pages. So let's make our home page real quick. Make a new file. We'll call this one the home_page.py. Okay. Class homepage, and this is going to inherit the page base. All right, so let's bring it in. I'll go definite. We'll need pi. And then we're going to say, we need to use super here, of course. So super, don't need all this goodness. Super.init, we'll pass in pi. So that super is going to help with initializing the page base, because the page base, we say we require Pylenium. And so we're going to pass in an instance of Pylenium when we initialize a home page. The cool thing about this is, let's say that we wanted to say like go home. Even though we already have this is just an example. If I do self dot, you'll see I have header, pi, and go home, right? So if we do header dot, here is our go to home. Oh, very, very nifty, right? Yeah, so I mean, we have access to this function already because we're inheriting from page base, and page base has a header navigation object, right? Which means that because header nav has search, so does the home page. But we don't need to specify that, right? Because it's already in here. So for example, self.header.search, and there's our search, and we can search for anything that we want, right? We had exotics before, but we're not going to do it in here. This is just an example. But notice how we already have the header.search to search on any one of our pages that inherits from page base, which is really convenient. Not to mention, I don't need to hold an instance of Pylenium anymore because my page base is holding that instance of Pylenium. So we don't really need to put anything else inside of here right now. We'll leave this just blank the way it is. Right, the next thing we'll do is we're going to hold all of our pages in a single object. We're just going to call it pages. Let's call it copart pages.py. Now the whole point of this class, copart pages, is just to hold our pages. So we're going to say init, and again, this also needs py. We'll do our little trick here. Now we don't have to do this everywhere. I'm doing it just so then you can see that I'm kind of specifying everywhere what type of object I'm wanting, being very explicit in that. But it's not at all required. Now here I'll have self.home is equal to a home page, which requires py. We'll bring this in, there's our home page, and then we'll leave this class the way it is as well. Right click, we'll go new, directory, we'll call these ones tests. This is where our copart.com tests are going to live. And inside of here, we're going to make a conftest.py file. And really all we need is one, well, let's import pytest. We need one fixture that will give us the instance of pages that we need across our tests. So import pytest at pytest.fixture, and we're going to say copart. And this does require Pylenium, so we'll do that. And then all we're going to do is let's just return a new instance of our copart pages. And that's all this fixture is doing, is just being an instance of these pages that we can share. Well, not share, that each test will have its own instance of, right? So if we wanted to make a new test here and use it, say, we'll call this test search.py. Okay, before I continue, I'm just going to make a change to one of my conf test files because we called this one copart already, and I don't want this one to get in the way of our stuff. So right now I'm just going to comment these out just so it doesn't get in the way of this example here. So def test search exotics, and then we'll have our copart. Now when I say copart dot, you see that we have home, right? Immediately to be able to be used, but we need to get to copart first. So we could either include Pylenium as well, and that way we could say py.visit and get to copart.com. Or we could also just go into the actual like copart pages. We could say def go to, and then we would just need self.py.visit and then do it in here. Copart.com. We'll just need to make sure to hold our instance of Pylenium in here. So here we go, is equal to py. And this does, we should do a return on here. You don't have to do return, but I would suggest it just because visit does return Pylenium. So might as well keep the chain going, right? So there we go. So now we have our own goTo method. Going back to our test, we wouldn't really need this line anymore then, because we could just say copart.goTo, and that would do this first line. So I'll get rid of that. There's our goTo method. Then we have copart. We're on the home page. And then from here in the header, we can search whatever we want. In this case, we were searching for exotics. Then we'll say assert py.contains. We should have Porsche in that list. All right, so let me give this thing a run real quick. Let's see what we get. Oh, snap, failed. Unexpected. Let's see here. When we do a super, it should only take one argument, which is the instance to initialize. Let's go to page base and, oh. Well, that's embarrassing. That's not right. That should be init. Def init, not def index. I was typing too fast. So def init, this def, homepage, def init self py super init py. Okay, looks good. Let's try that again. Okay, I'm seeing stuff this time. Yay, things are happening. Yeah, don't make typos like me, friends. All right, so running through everything like it was in the previous challenge. Search exotics, find it, and it looks like everything passed. There we go. Whew. Looked much better that time. All according to plan. So just like that, you can have multiple pages and hold them all inside of this class that we had here, our copart pages. You can add anything to these. So right now, homepage is pretty empty, but I mean, we could add anything in here too. So we could check how many cars are in there, add it in here as well as any function or any property that you want. Any new page that we make could inherit from page base. So if we were to add another one, just so we can have two pages, let's do new, and let's call this one it was search results, right? Search results.py. And let's just call this, well, this is more of just like it's like the car page or the results page. Search results page. Because I guess technically it could be really anything, right? Like if we were to find any one of these, so we go to Corolla, let's say. Yeah, so search results for Corolla. So it is the search results page. Okay, we're good. Class search results page, and then let's inherit from page base. We'll need to bring this in. There we go. And we're going to type in init correctly this time. We do need to bring in Pylenium to every page. And then let's super it in. So super.init. And then in here we had py. Okay, and now that we have this, let's go on to the search results page, and we could kind of search anything in here. Like here's a search to filter out the current results. There's even like show number of entries and things like that. So like let's say we wanted to change the show entries to something else, right? So we can get this thing, select name. We're going to use this right here. So the server side data table length. Let's copy this. And let's go back to our code here, and let's say def, we'll call this show num entries, and let's just do like number of entries, why not? Now we want to py.get, and we want to find this thing. This had the name, right? So let's go, we want the name that equals this right here. And this is self.py. And now that we have this is a select element. So we could now kind of select on it and just say we want to select with the value of whatever number they give us, right? So if they give us 100, then we'd switch over to 100, right? So here's a 20, 50, 100. So any one of these that they give us, we'll switch to that. And if we go back here, this function select will do that for us. So now this current object is complete. We could go to the copart pages and just add it inside of this list. So let's call it the search results. This would equal search results page py. It doesn't know what this is. Let's bring it in. And there we go. We're going to do another test inside of here. So test search results. Now we can use the search results right off of Copart. So we'll say Copart search results. Let's show the number of entries and let's change it to 100. Now, whenever we do this, if I change it to 100 right now, it's going to switch it with this like loading spinner, right? So this loading spinner right here is kind of always existing, so it never really goes away. It's either displayed or it's not, right? It's like you can see it kind of spinning right here. So if I change this to 20, it loads, change to display block, and then it goes back to none again. So if we don't wait for this loading spinner, if Porsche already exists in the list before we change it to 100, the test will pass. And that might be good enough. I mean, for your case, you may just want to make sure that it's found in one of the entries. But in this current scenario, we want to make sure we wait for the spinning to be complete. So that way it goes from 20 entries to the 100 that we were expecting, right? So I could grab this. We want to grab this ID, server-side data table processing. And let's go py.get. We want to find it with the ID of this. And this should have the attribute, which would be the style. And then the style was display none. So let me grab this. So we'll paste it in here. It was block first. It was block first, so we wanted to start loading, and then eventually it should no longer have that, and it should go back to the style with none, right? So this element should have attribute this, and then it should have attribute that. So let's give this a run and see what happens. Pull it over real quick. There we go. Switch to 100, wait for it to appear. That went really fast because once it went away, it checked. And yep, it passed. So it did it really, really quickly there. So once the 100 entries are loaded, it immediately looked for Porsche, and then it was there and it passed. So this line right here, line 6, looks really, really gross inside of the test. Really all it's doing is just loading the table, right? So we could copy this, go back to our search results page, and we could have another function. Let's say def wait for, let's call it wait for results load. And then all we want to do here is really what we had before, right? So we just want to wait for these things to be true. So let's say self.py.get, all this good stuff. So it should have attribute this, then should have attribute that, right? Now in Python, if you do enter here, it doesn't really work the way that you would expect, right? Like even if I did the dot here, it just doesn't read it that way. And so you normally have to put like a / if you did want to have these spaces. That way you could have more of the formatting that you would like. And then just make sure to format things a little more cleanly here. That way it looks a little bit better. So you can't just go like in JavaScript or C# where you can just do enter and then have these like dots kind of chaining together. In Python, you have to have these backslashes just to say this is one big line, but visually we're breaking it into smaller pieces. But now we have this wait for results load. So we could, right after we do the show number of entries, we're going to change the number of entries and then we should wait for the results to load. So right here, we would just say self.wait for results to load, and voila. Every time we use our show num entries function, or action, if you will, it will select the number that we pass in and then also wait for the results to load. So inside of our test here, I don't need this line anymore because it's done inside of line 5. And we'll give this one last run for good measure. See if I can get there real quick. Speed. There we go. Ooh, there you go. Boom. Passed. So hopefully you guys are able to see kind of the flexibility that you have when it comes to Pylenium. You don't have to do page objects. To be honest, you could probably just put this in a single file called like actions and just kind of bypass the need to have all these page objects. Because look how many files we're working with right now, right? Like we have a lot of files open at this point. Just to kind of do these, I would say, not so complicated functions. I mean, we did the same thing inside of the challenge in the previous episode in a few lines of code. And so I would say that for this example, even though we can use the page object model, you want to do so sparingly, right? There are times when the page objects are too big or they're actually really complicated, when you could have done the same thing in a smaller, just more of a modules and functions kind of approach instead. But I did want to show in this video that you have the ability to, you can when it makes sense, and it's actually really easy to. So let me know if you have any questions or if you have any feedback. Hope you guys enjoyed the video and have a wonderful day.